Climate change is basically insulation for the earth. Carbon dioxide, CO2 is the pink stuff for the earth. That's what climate change is. That is its basic definition. Nothing more, nothing less. It's a little more complicated than that, but it works the same way anyway. It has to do with infrared radiation, but it works out the same way. You put more of this in, whether it's insulation or insulation, you put it on, whether it's blankets or carbon dioxide. We really can measure the insulative effects. Insulation, carbon dioxide has been known since an American woman, Eunice Foote, discovered it. So let's talk about that later. Scientists have known that CO2 warms the climate for about 200 as soon as they could. No. 1824, Joseph Fourier established the existence of a natural greenhouse effect. Now, keep in mind, this guy's work is still used in trillions and trillions of dollars, probably on clothes that are on you right now. His work is still used today. In 1859, it was actually an American woman. John Tyndale was a British man, but he may have actually seen Eunice Newton Foote's work in a magazine, although that's not confirmed. But Svante Arrhenius did the first estimate of a global temperature increase from fossil fuel use. I mean, this guy's a genius, and a lot of his work is used in the mechanics of every major chemical process, or should be used, because he wrote the book on it. So, I mean, these guys, we know they're right. We always knew they were right. They're geniuses in all of the fields. And 97% of climate scientists say we're experiencing global warming. You can't get 97% of people to agree on nothing. That's a pretty astounding number. Anything over 70% is usually crazy. Say 51% in Congress, we see how hard that is. 97% agreement among a group of people is the smartest people in the room, the people who get up every day and check temperatures and thermometers every day, agreeing. That's a whole lot of agreement. An American scientist, Eunice Foote, measured the insulative, at least Newton Foote, measured by the insulative effects of carbon dioxide a few years before Tyndall in the 1850s. It was an important number to have quantified because, I mean, it's also something we would still use today in terms of the basis for how we qualify the numbers and how we think about the insulative effects of these gases. She measured it for the United States. U.S. petroleum production averaged about 18.37 million barrels per day. That's from the Energy Information Administration. It's compiled from the oil industry statistics. These are basically in oil industry statistics. 18 million barrels of oil used in the United States every single day. 18 million barrels. That's a lot. So that means that, and then the carbon dioxide that's released from that oil burning is 18 billion pounds of carbon dioxide every single day. That's 18 million multiplied by 950 pounds of CO2 per barrel. So that's how much carbon dioxide is given off into the atmosphere every day in America. That's nearly 80 pounds per American per day. Man, woman, or child for all 330 million Americans. And with other sources, like, say, the stuff China makes for us and the coal they burn to make it with comes from us. CO2 per American per day, it comes to close to 150 pounds of CO2 per day. I mean, it may be more, it may be less, but it's pretty close to that. A lot closer than your guess would be. Worldwide, humans turn 100 billion tons extracted from the natural environment into 67 billion tons of trash and waste gases each year, the National Geographic statistic. I mean, but you do end up having to trust statistics from somewhere, and it sounds about right. Like, I mean, disposable society, We waste too much trash, and all you have to do is be a person. You don't have to be any kind of person, but just as long as you take your trash out of somewhere at some point in time, and shame on you if you don't, because we produce so much of it. You got to know, like, we produce too much of it. It's a pain in the butt, and it's completely new, and we end up wasting perfectly good things. We just got to do better. I mean, and we do have a beautiful life. We don't have to not have one, but we do have to do better in terms of not making things disposable. We got to make things durable and sustainable and align with the physical economy to the monetary economy. So climate change is like pretty close to the literal apocalypse. In fact, we might be in, sort of like a time of revelations where everything shifts really quickly. Um, but things like war, disease, I mean, all of these things are scientific certainties. If, the temperature changes by 17 degrees overall, like, I mean, you're going to end up having abandoned cities and all kinds of crazy accidents happening, coming at us quicker and quicker, and it gets harder and harder to deal with and more expensive. It's preventative maintenance. And I mean, the numbers are just off the charts, like that, as we've been discussing. Like, it's time to make a change. There's no reason not to make a change. And it's jobs wherever there are people. Like, I don't know how to say that too much more. Like, improving the environment for the people and making it better. And on the other side of that, we have the horsemen of the apocalypse, and then we don't want to be sexist anymore. There's two real big girls on elephants. That's why you don't see them with the four horsemen. They're riding elephants, and they're called hurricanes. They're, you know, a real pain in the butt, and they're coming to smack you up. I mean, water's getting warmer. Hurricanes happen. We need to just whatever we do to avoid the worst of what's coming. I mean, it's just not, and it's very fixable. And of course, you can build the future, build everything to the future. Um, the George Jetson cities, like the kind of money that we have, we could have been done, did it a long, long time ago. And right now, it's a genuine national security risk. We have to move to the future. Oh, well, we'll have to realign all of our environment and make it better for everybody to live, better for us to grow, move forward as a people. Revelations is misinterpretation. It's not the beginning of the end, but the end of the beginning, and the beginning of the future, the next steps. So there were some darker things that were kind of possibly going to happen, but I swallowed all of it. It's cool. We're gonna do good. We're gonna do good. So build a structure for our children to go strong, happy. We want to measure this somehow. I don't quite know yet, but there's very real characteristics, like feeling mentally like not mentally challenged, but to have challenges to your mind and passed over. Think towards the future. There's definitely a lot of science to answer. Productive capacity, we're going to have to look at it. I mean, we're going to have to learn to use to harness as much artificial intelligence as we're effort on that as we do on natural intelligence. Make sure we're spending that on the future for our children and spending our money and dollars on developing, the structures a little bit better. Like, we've learned a few things since the 1940s, and they need to reflect that in buildings. They're very important. They're our current, housing environment. But small changes, like not taking care of the code on the sounds, the decibel levels. Like, I've been doing the sounds. It's tough for people in places like New York City. Like, I would think it would be a little literal. I mean, it does make the city a little less livable. We need to have more public bathrooms here in New York City. We're getting a much better. I mean, New York City is doing a lot more for recycling than other places, like actually having separating bins and starting to train its citizens on it. But we got a lot to go, and a very, very long period of not doing preventative maintenance. Like, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing, but we really need to focus. We need to get this done, and we do it for our future, for our families, and take this opportunity to, really shine and to have a chance to have our spaces reflect, the art, the beauty that's in our minds, and create a lasting heritage as part of a much bigger whole that understands itself better, because we're going to see ourselves